Well, hi there, gang. Welcome to the 30. You can never get enough of that music. It is just fantastic. I want to welcome you to the 30. This is your host, Patrick. And as we continue our conversations on mental health and mental health awareness, I want to thank you for joining us. If this is your first time joining our broadcast, the 30, I want to thank you for absolutely being here. If you've been a guest of ours for a very long time, a viewer, a listener, thank you for being here. This is episode 98. Can you imagine that? 98 episodes. We started this back in April of 2020, and we're still going strong. 2 weeks, we will have our 100th episode of the 30. And you want to make sure that you are there. We have some special things lined up. We have some giveaways. We have some of our popular guests will be coming in and just saying hello and see how they are doing. So make sure that you are here on June 9th. You definitely don't want to miss it because it is going to be a blast as we celebrate 100 episodes of the 30. So thank you for all your support, all of our guests, all of our viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for 98 episodes. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on, as I mentioned, mental health and mental health awareness. We have a very special guest. She's big time. Right? She's big time, and she's joined us here on the 30. So I am happy to bring her in shortly. But before we do that, let's get this party started. Again, welcome to the 30. This is Patrick, your host. It is a fantastic time if you're watching us live or if you're watching us in replay. This is great. We are focusing on mental health and mental health awareness. And I'm going to be joined by my guest, Felicia Brown. I'm going to bring her in and I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell you who she is, what she do, and everything. She is fantastic. I had a great conversation with her earlier today, and I know you are going to like her. Make sure if you have any comments or questions for Felicia or myself, make sure you drop them in the comments box and we will get that to her. So Felicia, welcome to the 30. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Patrick. It's really a pleasure to be on and to get to talk about mental health. I think it's a great topic. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So tell our audience, who is Felicia Brown? What does she do? What is she involved with?
Well, that's a big, broad topic, but I'll go the professional route and tell you a little bit about myself professionally. I've been a massage therapist since 1994, and since that time, I've also been a bit of an entrepreneur. I've had several spas, some of which did really, really well, and one that did not. And have also always been passionate about helping other people succeed. So, as part of that, I became a business and marketing coach for people in the massage, spa, and wellness industry. I have written a lot of articles, and as you can see behind me, quite a few books. Some that I wrote by myself and others that I contributed to. And I continue to do that kind of work and to speak at conferences around the US and abroad online to help people find whatever it is they need to succeed and to just make their lives a little bit better, but also to make the lives around them a little better. So I'm excited to be able to do some of that here today.
Awesome. Now you mentioned and you showed the books behind you. I think I was reading you wrote and collaborated on 15 books. Is that right?
At least that many. There's a few that are in process that I haven't even counted yet, but personally, I've written 7 or 8 books by myself. And then, like the one you have recently been talking about, Scars to Stars,
Mhm.
that deals with mental health awareness. That's a collaborative project. And I've been involved in a number of those, some of those being textbooks and others being just for fun. So, wide range of things out there.
Now, you're also a speaker, and entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about those two entities or those two things that you do.
Well, the speaker part, I think, comes from a natural love of teaching. It's something I've done my whole life. I just am a natural helper. And long before I was a business owner in the way that I am now, I was actually both a figure skating instructor and a ski instructor. And so I had that opportunity to help people learn, a skill or several skills within those sports. And then prior to becoming a massage therapist, I worked in the restaurant and hospitality industry as well as retail. And again, I always ended up somehow being a trainer, whether I was hiring or training brand new hires or people that needed a little more coaching or whatever. So that, I think, the speaker side of me kind of came out of that, both the performer as a former figure skater, liking to be in the spotlight, so to speak, and the teacher wanting to help people learn a skill or improve whatever whatever goals that they wanted to achieve, or help them solve problems. So that's kind of where that evolved. And to a certain extent, the entrepreneur came out of that too. I like helping other people. And so I grow businesses that help people either in their business or in some other way.
Awesome. So we have some chemistry there, or some things that are like with training and development. Now, let's shift here a little bit. Today's episode or topic, I should say, is there's more to what the eyes see from a mental health perspective. Give our audience a background of where you come from as it relates to mental health, because I think your story and your journey has been so compelling. Just the little time that I spoke with you today, it is so compelling, and I know it will help our viewers and listeners. So let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, I'll just preface this by saying that an attitude I run into sometimes, because people will see me on a stage or as the owner of a successful business and assume that life is just easy. And if you're a small business owner, that's not always true. In fact, it's almost never true. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into creating a successful business that we try very hard not to let other people see. But um, I would honestly say in the beginning, when I was first becoming a business owner, I was shy to share my story. But I actually come from a home where there were a lot of mental health issues. My mother suffered with depression and some other mental health issues. And so as a child, I grew up around that and really um, had to learn to deal with things in a way that a lot of kids don't.
Hmm. Yeah, and your story in the book Scars, 2 stars, you tell a great story there in terms of leaving home at an early age. I think as a teenager. So talk about that, and what forced you to have to leave the house from your mom.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, my mother had some mental health issues, and um, short story is that she wasn't really the parent that was raising me until I was a teenager. You can imagine someone who's never been a parent, who was thrust into being a parent of a preteen and then teen, who also was dealing with mental illness issues. Well, it was a little bit combustible. And so my mom and I ran into some issues, a lot of it being that I was very responsible and wanted to like achieve, and she was dealing with all these mental health issues and so was maybe not of the same mindset. So we came to a point where I thought, man, if I don't get out of the house, I may not ever get out of the house. And it sort of coincided with her inviting me to go out of the house. So at age 17, I went out on my own. I left home. I had a place to go. I'm really fortunate that I had a safe place to go. But I moved out and was fully supporting myself at age 17. And you know, we could say the rest is history, but I think it really taught me to learn how to hustle,
Hmm.
how to pay my bills, and gave me a desire for something more, to create something that was my own and that I could build into something that would sustain me for a long time.
Awesome. So as we look at it from a journey standpoint, so your mom battled with depression. I think you said that you also had some mental health issues around that too. In our conversation, your mom attempted suicide. Was that it?
Well, when I was in high school, I had actually had I would say, a very weak attempt myself at
Mhm.
suicide, taking something like 2 aspirin an hour. I thought eventually would, potentially kill me if I just kept that up. But that's not a very strong strategy for success in that. So it was more a cry for help for me. But in that same time period, my mom did truly try to commit suicide, and it was a horrendous situation. Obviously, any teenager that has a parent that's mentally unstable is going through a lot, but that attempt to commit suicide forced me to have to actually have her committed. And as a teenager in that situation, it was very scary, because I was working against my mom and the court system to try and protect her as well as me. Her being at home after that wasn't so good. So there was an attempt when I was around 16. And then unfortunately, she eventually did succeed in taking her life when I was 20.
Wow. 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 So how did you handle that at such a young age, at 20 years old?
It was rough, man. I'll just tell you. It was, I guess I've always been something of a survivor. I mean, one thing you and I didn't talk about is that she was the last of my sort of guardians that was left. My grandparents that had been raising me had both passed away. Those were her parents. And my father had passed away when I was 10. So she was like the last
Hmm.
person in my immediate family. So obviously, when she left or chose to leave, I felt pretty abandoned. And I'd say the biggest thing I did was I really sought out the company of friends, the comfort of friends, the family that you choose. I was very fortunate that I had quite a few people, but I knew that counseling was important. And so, as soon as I was able to engage in counseling and find someone to talk to, I can't say it was like the next day, but
Hmm.
when I had the mind to actually go and do that to help myself recover, that was I'd say, very instrumental in me beginning to not just overcome the loss, but to let go of my feeling of responsibility that it was somehow my fault.
Hmm. Wow. 20 years old. Yeah, that's and looking at you now, right? And hearing your story of success and starting your businesses, one would never know that you've gone through that. 17, 20 years old. Hence the topic, there's more to what you see, right? There's much more to what the eyes see. So I can see you, I can see your success, but no one knows what happened behind there. So
Right.
let's talk a little bit more about your journey from there, going through counseling, and then having to start your own business to survive.
Right. Well, I'm going to say I didn't have to start my own business. I got to.
Okay.
And it was, I was like totally driven and excited to do that. I'm very entrepreneurial. I like to make things happen. I like to set a goal and achieve it. And so starting my own business was really a product of that. And also, I'm too hard headed to work for anybody else. And the places that I was working when I became a massage therapist, I had a way that I saw maybe would be better. And my bosses in the different places said, well, no, this is how we do things here. And so, um, I just got to a point with that I was like, well, I have to go out on my own because I can't work somewhere else.
Mhm.
But if I'm truthful, if I think about it, like part of that drive, that desire to achieve was me running away from wanting to face some of the emotions that I was dealing with.
Mm.
The a lot of the pain and the trauma from not just the loss of my mother. I mean, plenty of other things. We can't pin it all on her. There are plenty of things that I did that were stupid that caused me trauma too. But counseling is something that, my mom actually taught me to do. And when
Mm,
my father passed away, that was one of the things that she advocated for. I guess, from her own mental health issues, she said, "Oh, well, you need to go to someone to talk about your grief." And little kids don't really talk about their grief. They play
mhm.
games or they do puzzles or they write stories or color pictures or what have you. But that, I feel like she really gave me a gift because she gave me permission ahead of time, if you will, to get the help I needed after she was gone.
Wow. Yeah, there are some people who would say, "Well, I don't want to go to Satan someone as a shrink and have them talk about me or me talk about my problems. Why should I do it?" What would you say to that person?
Hey, I hear you. I do because there are certainly times when I've been afraid to talk about something in particular. I mean, I've been through a number of different things, and we don't have to go into that here. We can talk about that on our next visit. But um, it can be scary, and sometimes there are things we don't want to admit to ourselves. That we don't want to talk about with someone because then we'll actually hear the words. And that's why we're not going to the counselor. It's not that we don't want them to hear it. It's really we don't want to admit it to ourselves. So I think that that probably plays a role for a lot of people. But one of the best practices that I've used, and this is part of what has brought me into the world of writing and publishing books, is journaling. And, it's kind of like being your own counselor in a way. You don't have to share it with anyone, but getting the words out, the emotions out, and just the experiences so that you can go back and look at them and kind of examine them yourself. I personally find that incredibly helpful. I mean, I have stacks of journals from, I mean, even when I was a teenager, that occasionally I'll go back and look at and see, like, what was going on then? Or, what did I think about this? They're not terribly organized, but sometimes it's just a brain dump, to get whatever happened where someone cut you off in traffic or when I was waiting tables, I'm sure I wrote plenty of things about the person who ran me to death going back and forth to the kitchen for extra ranch dressing or something like that. But the journaling and getting it out somehow I think is really helpful. And another thing that I do that I'll just mention, and I'm not a professional in it, but I use EFT, emotional freedom technique, which
Mm,
is kind of a combination of like talking through your feelings with your, could be with a person or yourself, but also using some stimulation on acupuncture points in the body. And I find that to be kind of helpful too.
wow. Yeah, my the therapist in the household says so true. I think she's referring to the journaling piece. So that's good. Now, how did you get in talking about being an author and writing? How did you get involved in the Scars the Stars project?
Well, I think you may be an alumni of TVE also, if
I
I'm not
am.
mistaken. And so I got involved in the virtual event workshop a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last January, and got really excited about it and ended up joining this larger coaching program that they offer through that event.
Mhm.
And somehow or another through that, Dina and I got connected, and I ended up doing one of her events. Um, and really, I came in there to talk about the my ducks. Okay, I came in there to talk about my rubber ducks and how they kind of helped me cope during the pandemic. And when I got into that event and I started listening to all the speakers sharing their stories, and particularly about how they were touched by suicide. I realized my story was not the story I needed to share. I needed to express, I needed to tell people about A, my own mental health issues, but B, I needed to tell them about my experience with my mom.
Hmm.
And it just really, that whole event really resonated. And so when Dina talked about this book, I was like, yes, I am in. I want to be a part of it. And boy, I'm so glad I did. It was just a tremendous experience and it's a great book. I'm so proud of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was telling Dina I picked up about three of them. I purchased them uh, the day that it was launched, and she did the event. Fantastic event. Uh, Steph says again, it's not the things we talk about that hurts us, it's the things we choose not to talk about that causes us pain.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's move now. We talked about you being in business and entrepreneur, and wanted to succeed. Now talk about the things that you've done business wise and you're currently doing. And then I want to also talk about some of the struggles that you've experienced, because people think from an entrepreneur or a small business owner that it's all rosy. You're going to get in, form the business, and then next week you're going to become a millionaire and you have no problems. So let's talk about that.
Isn't that how it works? I mean, that's what happened to me, right? Kidding, totally kidding. When I became a massage therapist and I decided to open my own practice, I really just thought, oh, well, I'm going to create a place for a couple of people to work underneath me and not have to take on the risk of small business ownership. They can be autonomous and it'll be great. Well, what I found is that by creating a really great place to work, I kept attracting people and we kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I kept growing, more therapists and more clients, and we just kept expanding. It was sort of out of my control in a way, because when people decide you're the place, you're the place. So we kept growing, and my first spot grew to, from me by myself, a staff of 1, to a staff of approximately 50, and sales of close to $2 million a year when I sold it. And that's without, I didn't have any bank financing or anything until maybe year 7. So that was all like buy your bootstraps. Like, I got $10. What can I go get that picture hook I needed or whatever. It was really like little by little, but through that business, I became really known um, as a business professional, as someone that was easily quotable for the media. So I got all kinds of media attention. I got teaching opportunities. I started writing for these trade magazines, and it just kept growing and growing. So if you look at my CV, it's like 18 pages long, because it's got, I've taught hundreds of classes at these shows and events. I've been quoted in, I don't even know how many articles. I've written these books. I've been involved in 3 spas as a solo owner, and I was part of a 4th spa kind of as a managing consultant. In essence, a sort of a stand-in owner, but I've done a lot of different things, and even that's not even scratching the surface. I could just tell you, I've done a lot of different projects, but the reason for that is because I love to learn and I love to help people and I love adventures. And so when someone comes to me with a new project, I'm like, sure, let's see what it's about. So, one interesting example that you would never guess, I'm sure, after listening to all of that, is that I actually work as an expert witness in the massage and spa industry. And that at the moment is what I am the most busy with.
Got it.
So who would have thought? But it was just something. Someone called me one day and asked me if I would try, do something with this case. I'm like, sure, why not? And now, I've developed a really good reputation in the industry for that. And so, yeah, I'm swamped.
Wow. Wow. But it wasn't always like that. I know from our conversation you went through some trials which caused you um, to go down a dark path. So let's talk about
Mhm.
that.
Well, there've been a few, but I know the one that you are talking about, which we were discussing earlier. I mentioned this spa that I had 50 employees and sales of close to $2 million, and I sold it. I sold it for a variety of reasons, but looking back, I know it was because I was burned out.
Hmm.
I had nothing left to give. And so that was the only way I could figure out how to get out of it, was to just sell. So I sold it and vowed never to open another spa again. I was done. And then 3 years and 1 day later, basically, as soon as my non-compete ran out, I had the opportunity to open another spa, and a bunch of employees that all begged me to do so. And so, flattery will get you everywhere. And so these people convinced me that I needed to open another spa. The bank was more than happy to give me all the money to do so. And so I opened this spa, and we had a great team, and we had clients lined up at the door, really waiting for us to open. And then there was that fun thing that happened called the 2008 recession.
Mm.
which happened just started like months after we'd opened our doors. And all those people that had been waiting to get in the door, all of a sudden they were just gone. And I had this bank loan that I was using instead of like to have as a cushion. It was like it was funding the business because the money wasn't coming in. And next thing I knew, we had to close. I mean, it just, there were a number of things that happened that were, the timing of them was terrible when you, along with the recession and all of that. And so in less than a year, I ended up closing this spa, and it forced me to declare bankruptcy.
Mm.
It was so it was pretty dark. I mean, I felt like the biggest failure and loser in history, because here I'd had this really super successful spa and sold it for a high 8-figure sum, and thought, oh well, I can get through anything. I know what I'm doing. And then I go and open this other spa where I had took out a loan to do so, and end up closing it and basically losing everything. Not everything, but most everything. So it was pretty humbling. I felt pretty bad about myself.
Yeah. Now that put you into a place mentally. Where were you when this happened?
Well, it was a long, it wasn't just like a big drop off. I mean, it was like a slow decline. But if
Hmm.
I'm truthful, I was already having some mental health issues before we opened, or I'm sorry, not before we opened, before we closed. I
Okay.
think I got in there and realized it wasn't really what I wanted either. Like I opened it for the wrong reasons. So entrepreneurs out there, listen, don't open something just because it looks good on paper. You got to have some passion about it. You got to, your heart's got to be in it. And mine just wasn't.
Hmm.
So when things started going badly with the economy, and then I had some staffing issues as a result, suddenly I was, I had to make a choice, but I was already down at the bottom. I already felt pretty bad. And when I had to close the doors and call my friends to say, oh my gosh, can you please help me move the furniture out of here before I have to make my rent payment tomorrow, or whatever. I mean, it was like, it was bad. I mean, it was just, there's so many bad things about it. So I felt like a fraud, a failure, a loser.
Mm.
And it was just low. It took me a long time to recover from that emotionally, if I'm honest.
Wow. Now, was that the one that took you to the Ducks, or was that something else different?
No, no, the Ducks, that I rebounded. I mean, that was in 2008. So I rebounded, and I ended up, we can, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about the banker story. But I I rebounded, I rebuilt, I just went back to doing what I love. I focused on my massage therapy clientele. And over a period of years, as I grew my confidence back, I ended up opening another spa, very little, like baby steps. Like I added one room and one person or something
Mm.
like that, instead of just opening something grand. But that business grew into another successful spa. And what led me to the Ducks was when I had to close the doors and lay off 31 people in March of 2020.
Wow.
And
And
that was another, like, that was more like a kaboom because it
wow.
went from like, hey, everything's going great, to like business closed, no warning.
Mm.
So that's how, at least that's what prompted me to get involved with the Ducks.
Now, what is the Ducks? Because I know it's a business of yours, right? And
Well,
it's something that you do. So let's talk about that. What are these
it's
Ducks?
so okay. So they're not a business exactly, but let me just show you. This is who we're talking about. These guys, these five are known as the Dream Team Ducks, and they become like my creative muses, and really companions to a certain extent, travel companions. They travel with me when I teach at shows and stuff now. I mean, they're in the classes. They actually, like get it billing. They get introduced along with me at the beginning of the class. So um, they when things went kaboom at the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't know who I was. If
Mhm.
you own a business and that's your passion and you're in it all the time, when it's suddenly not there, you like don't know what to do with yourself, right?
Sure, sure.
And so I didn't know who I was as a person to a certain extent without being an owner or having a business to do something in. I didn't know who I was without seeing my massage therapy clients. And I couldn't really see, like, mentor my team. We did some things online, but it was just terrible. And so at one of those super low points where I was spending my days sleeping, scrolling, and crying,
Mm.
you know, I thought, gosh, if I could feel any amount better than I do right now, I would just do anything. And then I had this memory pop up in my mind of this rubber duck race that I had attended in Florida. It was at one of the conferences where I was teaching, and I didn't really understand what people were doing. I was like, I don't understand why people are excited about these rubber ducks going in the water. It seems weird. But at the end of the day, after that race, there was a party, and these two ducks, among many others, were distributed out to the crowd. And people might have had a cocktail or two, so it got kind of festive pretty quickly. And anyway, they came home with me, and over the years, I added a couple of others, these other three, and they all sat on my bathtub. And so on this day, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe my husband and I could have a race. That would be fun. And so we went, I convinced him somehow to go and have this race with me in the creek behind our house. And it just started this series of races. We started videotaping them. We gave the ducks names. I call the races like a sportscaster. I do like an introduction. And, we have different competitors. If you look behind me,
Oh, wow.
I don't even know how many there are now, but people send them to me. I did buy a couple of them, but most of them have been sent to me by people that got excited by the duck races, or, my story about the ducks. And so they send them to me. So we have races, and they're in the Scars to Stars book. They appear in another book. They've been on television. They're in this podcast today. So,
There we
they're
go.
kind of getting famous, getting a little
That's
full of themselves.
That's right. That's right. Well, Felicia, we are running out of time here. How does someone get a hold of you if they need to connect, if they need to chat, or better yet, if they need to hire you?
Oh, well, thanks. Well, I want to just put a plug in here for the book, because I think that's super important. And you can find out about the book if you have any mental health concerns, or someone that does. This is such a great book, so many wonderful stories. And probably the most comprehensive way to find me is to go to my website, FeliciaBrown.com. And you can click through, go over to I think it's my contact page, and it'll take you over to my Linktree account, which has got links to purchase this book. It's got information about my podcast, and you can connect with the ducks, watch some of the races on YouTube, get all their social contact information and all that. So that's where I would go.
Awesome. Any last words, Felicia, for our viewers, our listeners?
Well, we didn't talk a lot about the ducks, but I'll just sum it up with this, and to say that those ducks bring me joy. And they bring me joy. They make me laugh. They make me smile, and they connect me to a happy place. And so, in the spirit of the mental health awareness that we're talking about today, I just encourage people to find their joy, or find their duck, whatever that might happen to be, something that they can connect back to, and, add it into your life. Make time to find something that brings you happiness, and hopefully it's in your business. But if it's not in your business, find a way to add it into your life anyway.
Awesome. Wonderful, Felicia. Thank you so much. Yep, you will definitely be coming back on the 30 sometime down the road. We still have some more to talk about from an entrepreneurship and leadership perspective. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're busy. I saw you just ran or did a triathlon. Well,
I did on Sunday. I sure did.
Wow. Now a triathlon is what? Biking, running, and swimming?
Yes. Well, usually I think there are some others that are, maybe they do some different disciplines, but that's what it was. Yep.
Wow. Well, go get it. So
Woohoo.
thank you again. We will chat with you. Just a kind of a little tip. If you're watching on the 9th for our 100th episode, someone will walk away with a copy of Scars 2 Stars. We're going to give that away. So you want to make sure that you are here on the 9th. So thank you so very much. All the very best to you and your family, and we will speak soon. Okay.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Awesome. All right, so we've been talking to Felicia Brown. She's an author, business owner, speaker. She does it all, even a triathlon person. So she does it all. She's also part of this book. You've seen me talk about it last week with Deanne, and now I'm talking to Felicia, who's also one of the authors of the book. So make sure that you go and grab that. If you are here for our 100th episode, you'll have an opportunity to get a copy of it. All right. So thank you so very much. This is episode 98. Next week, we will start a new series and we will talk specifically about entrepreneurship. And then on the 9th is our 100th episode, and we will have a number of previous guests coming on and talking about what they're doing, where they are now, and we'll have some giveaways. So until then, be safe, be safe, be safe. May God bless you and your family. We're out.